guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel, and today I will be telling you about a very weird event that happened in history. I bet you're already wondering about the title, The Dancing Plague of 1518. Now I bet you never heard of this. It's not taught in schools. It's not really commonly known, but I think it should be. It has so many factors into it that once you find out the alleged true reason why this happened, it makes you think about like the psychology, culture, and our religion that we all build into not only historical events but into our society in general, and how such strange events like this happen. So enough talking, let's get into the Dancing Plague of 1518. On a warm summer's day in July 1518, Frau Trophia, a German housewife that lived in the city of Strasbourg, which is now located in France, got out of her house one day after her husband came home and, just like we all do, started dancing in the street. Now there wasn't any music in the street, there wasn't any band playing. She just started shaking her booty, her legs, and contorting her face in the weirdest looks to a sound or music nobody could hear. So she started dancing. She started dancing for hours, and people were crowding around. They're like, what is wrong with this woman? Why has she just suddenly gone mad out of a sudden? And of course, a crowd started filing around her, and it was definitely a peculiar sight. So she stops for a few hours to go to sleep, but then immediately gets up the next day and starts doing the exact same thing for hours upon hours, dancing, flailing her arms, moving like crazy. And this definitely caught the eye of people. This was weird. Was this some sort of demonic possession? Was she just out of her mind? So after a week of straight dancing like this for hours upon end, more people started joining in. By the end of the week, there were 40 people from the city of Strasbourg that were all dancing with Frau. So clearly Frau had joined together a pretty big crowd to start dancing with her. So a month later, in August, you will not believe this number, but 400 people started dancing in the streets with her. These people were just dancing. I don't know how else to describe it, but it's the weirdest thing. I feel like if you look outside and just imagine tons of crowds of people flailing their arms, kind of making these weird faces, just moving, just going, not really in any rhythmic pattern. They're just out there moving constantly. It's definitely scary. I mean, I would be scared if I saw that. I know people would just, it's crazy. It's like this mass kind of like brainwashing that's just developed over people. All because of Frau, apparently. She just started it out of nowhere. So obviously, such a mass event like this was obviously noticed by the city of Strasbourg, the officials, the governments, the police officers, the people who really managed the city. They could not have people running around in the streets, dancing like crazy for hours upon end. So a meeting board came together and they said, we have to find a cure, we have to find a way to handle these people, and what can we do? So there was a term known in the 16th century as hot blood. Hot blood, again, that sounds a really weird term, but it's actually a term as in overheated blood that transfers to the brain, thus poisoning it or making it kind of unable to function, unable to let the brain work properly. So this term hot blood was coined by a doctor, and the city of Strasbourg really liked this term, and they understood it in a way that, hey, maybe we should apply this term to people. Now, usually when the term hot blood is brought up, it's a completely different thing. They would usually cut the arm of people, let the blood leak out, the hot blood leak out, and you would be cured. But obviously they couldn't go up to people dancing like wild and cut their arms and expect them to live. So instead, the city of Strasbourg did the most rational but clearly stupidest thing anyone could ever do. The city of Strasbourg determined that the way to get this hot blood out of these citizens was to actually hire more professional musicians, more professional dancers, actors, and bring in a huge stage downtown to really get the crowd all hyped up like crazy. When the huge dancing group would slow down a little bit, the musicians would play crazy fast and really get that tempo, really get that rhythm bumping in these people. They would never stop. It was just this constant every single day. The musicians blasting the music like crazy, the people dancing. Basically, the city of Strasbourg, they were trying to exert so much exhaustion from these people that they thought they would just stop and, you know, pass out, go to sleep, stop. But the complete opposite happened, something that they didn't even prepare for. It's kind of shocking that they didn't think this would happen, but after they hired all these, more professional musicians, dancers, etc., to make this crowd go crazy, this is like Coachella for some reason. So as you can imagine, forcing these people to dance and really get them hyped up, even more hyped up than they already were with this music blasting for hours, more dancers, bringing groups together. People just started dying in the streets. People were passing out from exhaustion and just lying dead on the streets. People were dying of heart attacks, strokes, headaches even. They were dying of headaches. And yeah, people just started dying left and right on the street. There's an exact recorded number, but it's estimated that 15 people died a day from July to September. Now that's probably, ranging in the hundreds, but of course it wasn't 15 people a day exactly, but enough people died a day where this was turning into a mass, I don't know what to call it, genocide by their own government. It's very crazy that the fact that the government was like, yeah, keep the professional musicians and dancers out there to keep hyping up these people so they keep dying. All these people were doing, they were dancing themselves to death. They couldn't control their bodies at all, and they were dancing like crazy, and of course they started dying. And again, 15 people started dying every single day. So a good number of the dancers died. They died right on the street to be hauled away. So not everyone died, however, and the people that were still left on the street were hauled up to a top of an infamous mountain near Strasbourg. So the city officials thought that they had a curse placed on them by the Saint Vitus. I hope I'm saying that right. So they believe that Saint Vitus put this dancing curse on them. So what they did was they brought the dancers that were still alive, they brought them up there to this shrine that was on the top of the mountain. And what they did is very peculiar, but they actually got these red lace shoes and put it on these dancers' feet. Now, if you can just even imagine their feet, how red, bloody, and scarred they were from constantly moving all the time, they took these red lace shoes and they placed them on there. A priest specifically put them on there because usually red shoes like that are put on there when someone is believed to be possessed by a devil. So again, having the red shoes and having the priest put on it really gave the utmost force against the gods. These shoes, combined with the prayers and overall just exhaustion from the government officials, this actually worked. So in September 1518, everything just stopped. Everybody, they just stopped dancing. They were lying down, they were sitting there kind of in a daze, very on another planet almost. So, but it did stop. So from July 1518 to September 1518, the months of craziness were over. And it's the weirdest thing. It started out of nowhere and it stops out of nowhere. It's like, is this like some sort of on and off switch? It's a really weird thing how this just started and stopped out of nowhere. This entire event was recorded pretty well in historic books, and many historians know pretty well about the in and outs of this. So I bet you're wondering, is this even real? Like, how did this happen? I'm so confused right now, and I know, I get your questions. There is no direct definitive answer. There's no, oh, this is confirmed, but I have a couple theories that you can think about. You can be like, this is interesting. Of course, there's one that's the most plausible, which I'll get to, but I'm gonna list out some theories and you can make up your minds about what actually happened in the dancing plague of 1518. This dancing plague was not the first one to happen, however. All throughout the Rhine River in Germany and France, there were several smaller plagues that, overtook towns. Not for as long, not as big, but they still happened. There were still several dancing plagues that completely overtook people. I remember reading about a specific one. I'm not sure entirely where it was. I think it was Germany. Don't quote me on that though. That there were women just going in circles for hours. Several groups of them. So again, very weird. The first theory goes is that the entire city of Strasbourg ate contaminated rye. Yeah, you've heard me right, that there was a poisonous mold called ergot, E-R-G-O-T, I'm not entirely trying to say that, ergot, on the rye that contaminated it, which is a poisonous mold that is actually known as the original form of LSD. So you can see where I'm coming from. These people were obviously acting as if they were on some sort of drugs, but this poisonous mold is really deadly, and it would not allow these people to dance or live for even that long. So obviously this theory is pretty much trash, even though, I mean, you could find some loopholes around it, but it does make sense when you first hear about it, you know, like, oh, general people just eat this poisonous crop and it really dilutes their minds, but in general the crop would not allow them to live that long. The second theory is kind of two combined into one theory. I'm just gonna do this because they're just, you know, a bit out there to say the least. But one of them is that, you know, like I said, there were several different plagues, dancing plagues, that happened around this area or in this continent in general. So people thought that there was a big religious cult that would come out randomly in either months or years and just create havoc and wreak madness across these towns and dance like crazy, that, you know, some just religious cult just really wanted to do this or push some sort of narrative onto people. The other one was that women were the sole cause of this, because of course everything has to be blamed on women back then. You know, thank God times have changed, but it was a theory that women just wanted to rebel, be some sort of disobedient housewife, and they pointed to Frau and said, look, her husband came home, she started this madness out in the streets, and then other women were inspired. Obviously this makes no sense. There were men dancing as well, so it's not all women just dancing in the streets, but it's just interesting to point out that this was actually a plausible theory back then. The last theory, and probably the most plausible, is that this is all an event of mass hysteria. You've probably heard of this term before. Mass hysteria is either a real or actually imaginative collective fear and stress of a large group of people that just spreads over with honestly no control. It's more like of a psychological thing that, you know, it's hard to describe, but we're all connected in a way. So obviously this mass hysteria spreads between people. One person gets scared, 15 others, and it just keeps going. It's like, it's a never-ending link. So we can honestly apply this to what we're living in today. False information, false rumors, really just completely almost brainwash a large group of people into believing that, you know, either something's there or it's not there. Now, this is entirely probably what happened because the city of Strasbourg in 1516 and 1517 had seen some really detrimental things to their city. They went through smallpox, syphilis, extreme famine, extreme malnutrition, and political instability in their city. This is just unimaginable. I feel so sorry for those people, and they're all dying in the street together. They're all crying out, they're bleeding. It's a complete mess, and you can only imagine the stress of what we're going through right now times probably 1,000, because you know what they had back then was there wasn't any hospitals you can run to. There wasn't anything that could really help you. They had to deal with this, and I can just, you know, it makes sense why somebody like Frau was so overwhelmed psychologically, physically, mentally, and emotionally that her body just exerted, you know, we're just gonna drop everything, and she couldn't take any control of her body. And obviously the entire city was under the same stress, so once Frau started, everybody just followed along in this almost zombie-like control. This is probably what happened in the dancing plague, this term of mass hysteria. To say the least, these people were just consumed and overtaken by stress and the horrible real life things that they had to go through, which is just so crazy because our bodies exert our stress, our pain, our fears in the weirdest ways all together, it seems. And as weird as that might sound, you know, dancing your life away, dancing to get happy, it's definitely not happy dancing. I mean, as seen, I described it, they didn't look that they were having too much pleasure or fun. It was like almost, you know, they did lose complete control of their bodies and just kept dancing. However, one evidence that could, you know, kind of argue against this mass hysteria is that the largest mass hysteria ever recorded in history was 95 people. It was a massive laughing attack. So again, this is 400 people. That's a huge jump in numbers. So it could be blamed on other things. Maybe this dancing plague of 1518 was not mass hysteria. Maybe they don't consider it mass hysteria because they don't have enough evidence. Or maybe this laughing hysteria of, only 95 people, that was officially coined the term, but like I said, the dancing plague of 1518 did not have enough evidence. So with that being said, I want to know what you think, as this is just one of the craziest, I want to say funny, but it's not, oddest things that could ever happen in our weird long history of the world. So comment down below. I want to know what you think. I want to know what your theories are, and have a great day, and thank you for tuning in to this video.